Hello YouTube, it's Sign here with Hobbies Man once again, and today we are doing another light novel review. Today we're going to be reviewing Failure Frame Volume 1. The full title is actually Failure Frame, I Became the Strongest and I Annihilated Everything with Low Level Spells, which, as you can probably tell, is one of these classic loser to edgelord, overpowered character. And it's actually quite enjoyable, so let's get into it. It's written by Kaoru Shinosaki, and it's illustrated by KWKM. I don't know what that stands for. It probably has some meaning in Japanese, but I don't really know what it is. So that's that. Now this is published by 7Seas under the Airship title, which is pretty cool. I still can't tell when what goes into deciding if it's going to be a small book or a large one, because I just bought The Notorious Talker, and this is a relatively new title as well. It's also an Airship title, and as you can see, it's like their oversized version. So I don't know how they decide that, and I would really like to know, but I very much doubt that they're going to tell us, because it probably has to do with getting the most out of their money. So we'll see. But yeah, the demographic here is hard to tell. I couldn't find any information on what type of demographic this is, not even on the demographic of the manga adaptation. But since this is a light novel, it's probably in the YA category. The main characters are all in high school, and so that probably means around a YA type of demographic. The genres here are isekai, obviously, fantasy, and of course this is a game-lit RPG type of story. The game elements play a pretty important role in this book, and you get to see a lot of kind of video game achievement tags across the book. I don't know how to describe them, like bits of kind of like images that kind of break the text and show you something like level reached or skill unlocked or stuff like that. So yeah, this does have a manga adaptation as well, if I already mentioned it, but I don't know if it has an anime yet. It probably will at some point, because it's a pretty kind of standard, pretty easy story to kind of like by a lot of people, so it probably will get a good bit of popularity eventually. So yeah, now the premise here is basically that this whole classroom of high schoolers and their teacher gets kind of summoned into this fantasy world, and they are summoned as heroes. And we follow our main character Mimori Toka as he kind of finds out that there's this hierarchy based on the kind of skill class or whatever that each character is. So like what tier they are. So S tier is at the very top, E is at the very bottom, and he happens to be the only E tier hero. That means that he's the weakest, and so he is disposable. He is not necessary for the kind of hero summoning aspect of this, right? And so the goddess basically flushes him down the toilet, and he ends up on this kind of really messed up kind of dungeon place, and now he has to fight his way out of it. And what happens is that he manages to do this, and he comes out a very edgy kind of Batman-esque kind of anti-hero type of character, and he's out for revenge now. And that's basically the kind of vibe that this story has, very similar to a lot of other things like Shield Hero or Arifureta or a bunch of other stories like that. So yeah, now the plot line here is actually pretty solid, and it's actually a quick and easy kind of isekai event that is being summoned to this other world. And then there's a pretty easy and quick world explanation as well. So this goddess called Vicious, which is like a huge kind of red flag, kind of explains everything really quickly. She's like, hey, you guys are heroes. This world is very kind of messed up. There's a evil bad guy, and we need heroes to save us, right? We're the only country that can summon heroes because the goddess, allows it. And so everyone kind of has to respect them, right? And what follows is this big grind fest after Mimori gets kind of flushed down the toilet, like I said. And then there's some exploration of his character, kind of where he comes from, why he is the way he is, what sort of kind of situation he finds himself in now, and how that might be similar or dissimilar to situations he's had in the past and stuff like that. And we also get to see a few kind of snippets of situations that are happening with other characters, like this elf lady that's in the front. She apparently is running away from some people. She was actually mentioned really early on in the book, and kind of mentioned as this really important hero, but she seems to be on the run, and we don't know why. It's a very mysterious kind of situation. And we also get to see some of Mimori's classmates as they kind of train to be heroes in this, in the same way that Mimori is, but without the kind of threat of death that they have, right? Because they're with the goddess, so they are kind of well taken care of. And yeah, overall, I think the plot line is pretty good. It's pretty solid. There really isn't anything super amazing, nothing to write home about, but it's not a boring story by any means. I think that if you like these kind of edgy guy going on a grind fest kind of stories, you'll probably like this. I mean, a lot of light novels have this, so you might be bored of it by this point. But I find that this is actually kind of compelling, and mostly because the character work is pretty interesting. So let's get into it. The characters here are pretty cool. I think they're pretty interesting. A lot of the classmates are actually pretty shitty people, but the actual character of Mimori Toka is quite good. He's, like I said, a loser with an OP skill, and of course this skill isn't actually OP within the setting of the world, but only OP because he manages to use it differently from everyone else in the world, right? So we basically had explained that his skills are very weak. They very rarely land, and they don't really work. But of course, this is from the perspective of someone in a world and with the magic available to that world, right? But heroes have different kind of what's it called, like situations to them, and so their magic works a little bit differently. And so this allows Mimori to kind of have this different situation from what was expected, and so now he has an OP skill, right? And he's actually a really angry guy, but he kind of keeps it hidden because he decided to be a good person after he was taken in by his distant family members, right? Apparently he had a kind of big history of abuse from his actual parents, and so he ended up with a very kind of pessimistic outlook on life. But once his parents left him and he was adopted by his uncle and aunt, he kind of got a better disposition. But of course, that kind of erodes away once he's in a situation where he has to kill or die. So it's actually very, very interesting. I like that a lot. I thought it was really cool. It makes sense that, you know, this kind of guy would be an edgelord because he has actual situations that kind of provide a background for him to be kind of a messed up person, right? And so it actually is quite good. I actually like it a lot. It makes a lot more sense than someone like Naofumi being an edgelord who really didn't have anything wrong with him except for that one bad situation that happened in the first book of Shield Hero. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it goes. Then there's obviously the goddess Vicious. Again, that's a huge red flag. Her name is literally Vicious, and that kind of sounds horrible. But she's a kind of a bitch. She's a really shitty character. She's really bad, but of course she does have that kind of element of, like, she's a goddess and she's super powerful, so no one can really go against her. And I don't really think that she's an interesting character, but she seems to be an interesting foil for Toka now that, you know, he's basically out for revenge against her. And of course, it's really interesting to see her being kind of manipulative and kind of most people in the class taking it for granted and kind of just being okay with it. So yeah, there's also a lot of classmates. And I mentioned most of them are pretty shitty, but there's two of them that are pretty nice. And they have an image here. Let me get their names. So the first one is Sogu Ayaka, yeah. And the second one is Kashima Kobata, who are two female characters. Ayaka is the kind of president of the classroom, and Kobato is a kind of she's just a secondary character that had a run-in with Toka that was kind of relatively nice. And so they're kind of the characters that are unsure about the goddess, and they're trying to kind of figure out what's going on. And of course, they have this kind of connection with Toka that, you know, is going to play out later, probably in a harem kind of situation, right? And of course, the last character we have here is Sarah's Ashrain, who is this character right here. And she barely shows up in the book, but the few times that she shows up are pretty interesting. So I actually quite like her. She has this mysterious vibe to her, and I'm interested to see what happens with her, right? So yeah, in terms of world building, it's a pretty standard video game world with a very standard video game mechanics. It's a traditional Western style RPG fantasy world. And apparently this world has a lot of hero descendants, so that means that there's a lot of people that are above average in strength, and of course that means that we're going to have a lot of people that Mimori Toka is going to have to fight, right? So, and it won't be really easy for him now that he's out of the dungeon and not fighting mindless beasts. So I'm pretty excited to see how that goes. Generally, the world building isn't amazing, and it's very kind of standard for isekai fare. But it's not bad. There's some elements to it that are pretty interesting. The kind of matching mechanics are pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically it for the world building. In terms of artwork, I think it's really good when it's in color. I think it looks really nice. But when it's not in color, it looks kind of not the best. I think it's because it has a very kind of specific style of rendering. And so without color, it doesn't look that great. See, it kind of has this kind of like unfinished look to it when it's not in color, or like it's missing aspects of it. So yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but I think it's better when it's in color. It's not as good when it's not in color, but generally I think the art is okay. It's not horrible, not the best, but I did enjoy it. Of course, there's a bit of fan service, and I can't really show you too much of it. But here is one of the images that are kind of par for the course of this book. So yeah, I don't know. The fan service is pretty good. It kind of doesn't really happen all that much, but the few times that it does, it mostly has to deal with this elf character. So if you don't like elf boobies, don't read this book because you probably won't really like it. So yeah, most of the artwork and fan service are going to be from female characters. I haven't really seen that there would be any pictures of male characters yet besides Toka, so we'll see how that changes in future books. So yeah, in terms of rating, this is a 4 out of 5. I pretty much really liked it. It was pretty enjoyable, and I actually really read it really fast. Not that it's really that hard to read light novels, but I think that I really did end up binging this quite quickly. Because I was actually pretty interested to see how Toka was going to make it out. So overall, I definitely liked it a lot. So yeah, I definitely recommend this title if you like light novels of this sort. Of course, similar titles to this are what I already mentioned before, which are Shield Hero, Ari Ferretta. I guess some elements of SAO would be kind of similar. Generally, if the character is an edgelord and he's kind of angry with the world, it'll be kind of similar to this, right? So yeah, that's basically it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. See you guys later.